I've always been a creature of habit. Same route, same schedule, same familiarity of the nightly commute. But one fateful night, everything changed. I had missed my usual window and ended up waiting at an eerily quiet station for the very last train home. The platform was nearly deserted, the fluorescent lights flickering as if on their last gasp. The silence was unnerving, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. When the train finally slid into the station, its doors opened with a hollow hiss, and not a single person stepped aboard. For a moment I hesitated, scanning the empty carriage. Was it an oversight, a technical error? My rational mind whispered caution, but my body, tired from a long, stressful day, pushed me forward. I boarded, thinking I'd be the only passenger on this midnight ride. As soon as I sat down on the cold metal seat, the doors shut behind me and the train lurched into motion. The rhythmic clatter of the tracks should have been comforting, but tonight it sounded ominous, as if it were counting down to something I couldn't quite name. I tried to call out to the conductor, but all I got was a series of stifled, ghostly echoes down the empty aisle. It wasn't long before I noticed the other passengers. They weren't the usual assortment of late-night travelers. These people had an air of melancholic resignation, their eyes vacant yet teeming with silent stories. Then I saw her, a familiar face frozen in time. My breath caught when I recognized Joan, my childhood friend who had disappeared 20 years ago under mysterious circumstances. Beside her sat a man I had only heard about in scattered news reports, a local recluse who had been declared missing after a suspicious accident. Their presence, along with several others whose names and faces I recognized from old missing persons bulletins, turned my blood ice cold. I leaned over to a man sitting across the aisle, whose expression seemed to carry decades of sorrow. "What is this?" I managed to croak. He stared at me with eyes that bore familiar kindness, then replied in a monotone, "We've all been waiting for the final ride." His response, cryptic and chilling, sent shivers down my spine. It appeared that every one of these passengers had vanished from our world long ago. They sat in silent communion, as if chained to this eternal journey. The train hurtled onward, the darkness outside deepening with each passing mile. I peered out the window, expecting to see the shimmering lights of city suburbs, but instead there was only an endless stretch of barren, foggy nothingness. There were no stops, no announcements, just the relentless grinding sound of wheels on rails. My heart pounded as I desperately tried to piece together what was happening. Had I boarded some supernatural conveyance, a ghost train ferrying lost souls between life and whatever comes after? Every time I asked a question aloud, the response was swallowed by the oppressive silence of the carriage. I recalled old urban legends of trains that appeared on lonely nights, rumored to carry passengers trapped between worlds, never to be heard from again. As the hours bled into an indistinguishable continuum, I began to notice something even more disturbing. I caught glimpses of myself in a shattered reflection in the window, a version of me that appeared older, yet with eyes filled with the same terror I felt. At first I thought I was just exhausted, but then I realized the reflection wasn't mine alone. It moved independently, mimicking my expressions with a haunting deliberateness. I found myself questioning reality. Was I now a passenger in my own limbo, destined to join these remnants of the past? The train's steady pace provided no answers, only a growing dread that the journey might be endless. In a final, desperate bid to understand my fate, I searched the carriage for any indication of an exit, a conductor's cabin, a control panel, anything that could explain the nature of this ride. Instead, I discovered an old, worn journal tucked beneath a seat. Its pages were filled with the personal accounts of a man who, like me, had hopped onto the last train home one midnight and found himself caught in an eternal loop. He wrote of conversations with long-lost loved ones, of pessimistic warnings whispered by ghostly figures, and of the crushing realization that the train never truly stops because its destination is not a place, but an end. By the time the journal's final entry noted a resigned acceptance of fate, I was no longer sure if I was reading his story or if I was becoming part of it. The faces around me began to blur, their voices a muted chorus repeating, "We're all on the ride to nowhere." The revelation hit me. My own life, once filled with hopes and doors I intended to close, was now an unintended journey into the unknown. I still have no idea where or when the train will eventually stop, or if it ever will. Sometimes I catch the faint echo of a distant station announcement in my dreams, a whisper of what life might be on the other side of this endless ride. But every time I glance around the carriage, I see the blank, resigned eyes of those who have been missing for years, and I know that I might soon become just another face on the midnight train that never stops. TL. DR. I boarded the last train home one night and discovered its other passengers were people who have been missing for years. Now I'm trapped on a never-ending journey, caught between the living and the lost, questioning if I'll ever see home again. I still wonder if anyone out there has seen a train like this, or if I've just lost my grip on reality. Has anyone ever escaped this endless ride?